Pretty much everyone breaks at the sight of a spider. It's a phobia so common, it's almost expected. I think I've known more people terrified of these things than not. And honestly, can we really be blamed? Because spiders are just a lot. Too alien, too many legs, too many eyes, just too damn strange. But we all know that the vast majority of them are completely harmless. We know that most are smaller than a thumbnail, fragile enough to be crushed without effort. So why does the fear and the accompanying disgust persist? Some say it's evolution, that our ancestors, having lived alongside deadly arachnids, learned over time to fear things that looked and moved like that. But I think there is more to it. I think arachnophobia has very little to do with spiders specifically, and everything to do with what they have come to represent. A stand-in for our fear of the unknown, of invasion, of lost control, of bodily infection, and of something alien crossing into spaces we assumed were safe. The first obvious logical reason that comes to mind are the fangs, the venom. Perhaps it's just a survival instinct flown down the generational tree. Because spiders, for however small and frail we might think them to be, are indeed predators. They do bite. But then we learn that the overwhelming majority of them either can't bite us effectively enough, or their venom has no meaningful impact, nothing beyond some itching and redness. Hence, fortunately, spiders are simply not a threat in that regard. Even when it comes to the Black Widow, death rates are near zero with modern medicine. But also, unfortunately, that takes out the cleanest reasoning behind arachnophobia there is. In Megan Cavill's paper, Arachnophobia and Early English Literature, she brings up something quite interesting. See, most of us think that our phobia for these little eight-legged bugs is something deeply primitive and ingrained, that it sits next to our fear of snakes, wolves, and leopards. But that's kinda untrue, because while modern discussions of arachnophobia often frame it as ancient and instinctual, the fear itself is largely absent from medieval texts. Spiders do show up sparingly, but they are very rarely the villains. Instead, they are practical. Their webs get used in wound dressings, their bodies featured in herbal remedies, and they are admired for their clever weaving. In contrast to the wolves and snakes and lizards and leopards that actually have a rich history of being portrayed as villains in English folklore from the early centuries, the spider is often and weirdly seen with reverence. So if the fear isn't baked into our biology from the start, how did it become what it is today? So why? If it's not a base instinct, if it's not some primal survival response encoded in our DNA, then what is this? What is this fear? I asked around and I got, along with plenty of side-eye, a few recurrences. Across forums, threads, comment sections, real life, the same explanations surface time and again. I see some reach for biology, others for disgust, some blame culture, some say that they were never taught to fear spiders, they just always did. And yet, buried beneath the variety of explanations is a common thread that most of us know this fear does not make sense, and yet we fear it still. You see it everywhere. I know they can't hurt me, but I know it's irrational, but I know this sounds stupid, but that hesitation matters because if arachnophobia was truly about mortal danger, there would be no need for apology or ambiguity. We don't justify fear of heights or fire, but spiders demand an explanation because, on some level, everyone knows that the reaction exceeds the threat. One of the most common arguments we seem to reach for is evolution. The idea that humans are just wired to fear spiders and snakes, that our past relatives survived by avoiding small venomous things that moved unpredictably in the night. But even in these discussions, people hedge. They do not claim the fear as automatic, only that it's easy to learn, that the brain is primed to latch onto it quickly, which already undermines the idea of a hard-coded instinct. Others, as mentioned, point to disgust, which is understandable. Too many legs, too many eyes, incorrect proportions. But disgust does not explain panic. Cockroaches are disgusting, maggots are revolting, but they still don't provoke the full body thought bypassing response arachnids do for some. Then there is the weird one, motion. Over and over again, it's how they move. Because spiders indeed move very weird. They stop and start, they vanish and reappear. They cross space faster than we expect it would. And this, I think, is the first real crack to show us what actually is happening. I think that the fear is often triggered before the spider is even identified, before the word spider enters consciousness. Something that moves that unpredictably, that strangely. But even that isn't the whole venomous picture, because spiders aren't unique in this, not even close. Birds move unpredictably, squirrels dart, fish flash and vanish, and yet few people recoil from these animals in the same way. The difference, turns out, is a bit into the where and about the how. They're inside. Spiders move on walls, ceilings, corners, spaces designed to be empty, static, spaces our brains categorize as background. So when something moves there, it doesn't just surprise, it breaks a rule we didn't know we were relying on. Then the fear becomes violation, about contamination, and something about crossing a line it was never supposed to cross. Spiders look alien, they move alien, they exist where we think they are not supposed to. And because of that, every interaction, no matter how logically harmless, feels more than strange, it feels invasive. Because what finally terrifies us about spiders is not what they are. It's about how they keep breaking the rules. Rules we rely on to stay safe and sane. Rules we are taught and rules we quietly teach ourselves just to make the world feel navigable. Spiders are a study in contradictions. They look alien, but they are almost always harmless. They live, function, and behave like nothing else around us. They aren't prey, but they also aren't predators. They don't flee the way small animals do. They don't confront the way large ones do. They don't signal intent. They simply exist. Spiders operate on a plane of rules that runs parallel to ours, close enough to intersect occasionally, but never overlapping. In that sense, our fear of them resembles our fear of deep-sea creatures, beings shaped by environments we cannot inhabit, moving through pressures and darkness we have no intuition for. They feel alien not because they are hostile, but because they are unfamiliar at the most fundamental of levels. But spiders add a final, uniquely unsettling twist. Deep sea creatures stay in the deep. Things born of darkness remain hidden there. Spiders do not. They exist here. Not in distant trenches or lightless caves, but behind cupboards, beneath walls, inside vents, in the quiet architecture of our lives. They don't announce themselves, they don't rush, they wait. Something less like an animal and more like a presence. Something almost like a system error, almost like a virus. So, what is this really? What is arachnophobia? I think it isn't a fear of spiders, of insects or bugs. It's the fear of chaos slipping in. The quiet proof that our space, our walls, our rules, our sense of life was never sealed to begin with. Spiders don't attack, they almost never bite or infect. They just show up in the corner of your eye, on the ceiling above your bed, brushing your arm when you least expect it. It isn't the bite that gets you, they rarely even try. It's the touch, it's the presence, it's being confronted by something so utterly strange. It's a constant reminder of Mother Nature, dangerous and uncaring, seeping through the cracks of our safe modern existence. That's what's actually terrifying. Arachnophobia is the fear of something that refuses to fit in. If you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing and liking. And thank you for watching.